Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by the beautiful Victoria Beckon. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing very well, and I am so honored to have you here. We were lucky enough to present awards at the Scares together, so that's how we were able to make this connection, and I'm so excited to have you here. A little bit about you before we actually get started here. Victoria is a huge horror fan. She loves watching horror movies, listening to horror podcasts, going to cons and screenings, and chatting about horror movies with friends. Now, she is a member of Freaky Girls Live, a YouTube live stream show where they review different horror movies every month, as well as an avid collector of VHS tapes and a bunch of other strange things, like the mannequin that is dressed up like Jason Voorhees in her living room right now, which I do got to say real quick is amazing. Like, that's super, super awesome. She does work in the social work field. Thank you. Runs a small vintage shop on Instagram and is the cat mom of 2 cats. But the thing is, everything I just talked about, you can find links for it right down here in the description. So you don't got to go searching for it. I'm going to make her easily accessible for you. So Freaky Girls Live, how did that come about? What started that?
So I actually wasn't there at the beginning. I kind of joined maybe a year or so in. But Laura, my friend Laura, she's the one who started Freaky Girls, and she just noticed that on the live stream shows that were going on at that time, it was all guys, and there weren't any like all girl streaming horror shows. So she decided to just get some friends together and start one. So that's kind of how it started.
And the good thing about it is, we're starting to get to the point now to where women are respected in the horror genre just as much as men, which to me is complete insanity because horror has always been based around women. I mean, you look at the Final Girl, that's just like girls have been kicking dudes' asses in horror forever now, and guys still look at women like, "Oh, you're a real horror fan? How many times have you seen Hellraiser?" Like, come on, man! Like, we got to move past that. So, my women in horror are so amazing. I got so many great female content creators that are good friends of mine, and I'm so proud of all of them for being able to take it on the chin because I know you guys catch a lot of shit. So it's really nice to see you guys taking it by the horns and running with it. So, you said you guys do a live once a month. Do you usually have a set date or?
Well, we try to aim for the first Saturday of every month, which we don't always follow through with because sometimes it's hard to coordinate everyone's schedules. So if anyone's interested, the best thing to do is check out Freaky Girls Live on Instagram, and we always post when our next show is going to be. So yeah.
And you don't have to go far looking for that link because it's right down here. So make sure you're clicking these links, giving her a follow, subscribing to the YouTube channel, hit that bell so then you're going to catch those notifications as well. So in order to be part of Freaky Girls and to be a part of the horror genre, horror has to start for us somewhere. And I got to say 2 things about this movie before we get into it. One, I had never seen it until you and I had a conversation, and I went out and got it, and I was like, wow, this movie's dope. Like, this is such a fun movie. And 2, this is obviously, if I haven't seen it, I've never talked about it. This is the first time I've talked about it here on the podcast. We're up to almost episode 250. This is the first time I've talked about it, and I couldn't be any more excited. So let's go back to the past, Victoria. Talk about how horror started for you, your first horror movie, and the first horror movie that you watched was?
The Frighteners.
Oh my gosh, I cannot recommend this enough. If you guys can get your hands on a copy of this and you haven't seen it, again, can't recommend it enough. I had such a fun time with it. Ashley and I are going to watch it again tonight because she has yet to see it. And I was like, you got to watch this movie with me, babe.
Nice.
So do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen it?
Yeah, so I definitely started watching horror movies a little bit later. So I was 8 years old when I first saw The Frighteners, and it was my first horror movie. So I think it kind of caught me off guard because I had never really seen a horror movie before. So I was definitely very scared after. I don't think I slept for like a week after that. And I mean, like looking back now, like it's not scary at all, but when you're younger, things are a bit scarier. So
Well, especially when you have the type of movie this is, when you have ghosts and you have spirits and you have death, it's, I could definitely see how this could scare a young child. And I think it's funny that we're like, oh, I started late. I was 8. And a lot of people are like, late. I think that's amazing. Do you remember who you were with the first time you had seen it?
Yeah, so I was with my family. I remember we were at my aunt's house in Michigan. So I live in Canada and I have some family over in Michigan. So sometimes when we would go to my aunt's house, she would like rent different movies. So that's just one that she happened to have that week that she had rented. So we decided to watch it. So yeah, I was with my family and we all watched it.
Michigan represent, baby.
Nice.
Love it. Thank you for coming down to the Mitten. We love having you. So this is a movie that, like I said, watching this, I had a blast with it. There was moments that genuinely I loved. There was twists that caught me off guard. There was a fair amount of death and brutality in it. But what scene would you say affected you the most?
So the scene that affected me the most would have to be that freezer scene. It just really freaked me out when I saw it. So in that scene, Michael J. Fox's character gets injected with a drug to slow down his heart rate. And then he goes into the freezer, he gets locked in. So his intention is that he's going to, I guess, die for a short period so that he can fight I think he's called the Soul Collector in the movie. So his plan is to fight him and then come back. But then the doctor that he's kind of become friends with, her plan is to revive him, but then that doesn't quite work out as planned. So you're kind of scared, like what's going to happen to him? And I don't know, that scene really scared me and had a long lasting effect, I think.
Well, we're watching Marty McFly die essentially at this point, you know, like that's how, like, and it's funny, you know, Zemeckis had a part in this, and I loved this movie. I'm a huge Back to the Future is my favorite movie of all time that's non-horror, and you know, to see Michael J. Fox and Robert Zemeckis working together on this, that's how I felt like, wow, I'm watching Marty McFly go down. So this is a movie that there's also a lot of comedy that comes along with this movie. What would you say your favorite scene from The Frighteners is?
So yeah, definitely my favorite scene would have to be when we're introduced to Jeffrey Combs's character. He's like a kooky FBI agent, and he's just so ridiculous. So that has to be my favorite part, especially when he's introduced in just little things, like when he goes into the car and he like sets down that donut pillow. It's just so funny. I love him.
The way that he does it too is just like,
I know, it's like so over the top. I love it.
he's one of those characters that you're watching and you're like, this guy's definitely out there. There's definitely something going on with this guy, more under the surface than we're anticipating. Another thing I love about this movie are his two friends that he has with him the whole time. You know, like at first you don't know what's going on. And then you find out that he has his two buddies that are spirits that are going into the house and scaring these people. Like the doctor you talked about, they're in there and they're making her bed float. And us watching, we're like, what the hell? We don't know what's going on at this point. So those two added definitely a bit of comic relief. And I wanted to say that because as horror fans, we do love the kills. We like the brutality. That's something that we do enjoy. What kill would you say, not your favorite, that's really dark, but which kills from the face?
I think my favorite kill would have to be the mirror scene in the bathroom. So in that scene, I think Michael J. Fox is in the bathroom. I think he's in the stall. And then there's another person in the bathroom. And the soul collector comes through the mirror and grabs the guy's heart and then I think he goes back into the mirror.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just like a pretty scary scene. So I think it definitely holds up today.
And I love how in the movie, like you don't really know what the hell's going on for the first, you know, two acts, you know, because they're bouncing back and forth between these two different stories, and you really aren't 100% sure. But this is the first time you really see him come out, grab, and now you're like, oh my gosh, this is what's going on. You know, this is why these people are dying. So, a question I've been asking recently, Victoria, and this is, you know, like one that I think really works well with this movie. Remakes are obviously running rampant right now. People love to make remakes. Is The Frighteners a movie that you would like to see remade today?
That's a good question. I think it could work as a remake because I feel like some of the CGI didn't really age too well. So I could maybe see it done well, I guess, depending on who they cast in the roles. I think that would be the most tricky part, because how do you compete with like Michael J. Fox and Jeffrey Combs and Dee Wallace?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess depending on who is in it, it could be okay. So that would be interesting, I think.
And you talk about the CGI, like you have the opening of the wall coming and grabbing her when she's at the house. And it just, you're right. You look at it now and you're like, ooh, I could see how this worked then, but this just is not doing it for me now. So I definitely understand where you're coming from with that. So another thing about what I like to do here, we talked about your first horror movie, being The Frighteners, and what that movie meant to you. But now, Victoria, I do want to throw a curveball at you. I want to go scream on you here for a second. What's your favorite scary movie, Victoria? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
I feel like that's such a hard question to answer because there are so many good ones. But one that's definitely up there for me is Return of the Living Dead. I just love that movie so much. I love Linnea Quigley, so
Mhm.
yeah, and I love the soundtrack. I don't know, just everything about that movie. It's so funny, and I love the zombies. So
A total punk rock soundtrack too. Like
yeah.
I love Return of the Living Dead too. I'm right there with you. Um, with The Frighteners, is this a movie that kind of stuck with you? You watched very often growing up, or was this kind of like a one and done type film with you?
So actually at that time, so I saw it that one time at my aunt's house, like I mentioned, and then I never knew what the movie was. So I had never watched it again until a couple years ago. A friend had lent it to me, and I was like, oh, I've never seen this movie before. And then I watched it, and I was like, oh my God, this is the first horror movie I ever watched. So I was really excited because this whole time, like I had been trying to figure out what the movie was. So I was really happy to find it again. So that was really exciting.
And you talked earlier about the cast and how great the cast is. When I was watching this movie and I seen Arlie Ermy come out of the grave, what are you doing here, scumbag? I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And he's Fox. I can't wait for you to die because when you get here, I'm gonna have a lot of fun with you. So like seeing him in this role too was just super awesome. Seeing him come, still playing that military type role even after life, he's still doing that.
Yeah, that's cool.
I loved it to death. So, what one question I have? We talk about the Frighteners. Now I want to rank this Victoria on a skull count. What we're gonna do now is rank this. We're not judging it on production or score or direction or anything like that. What we're gonna do is strictly rank this on how much it affected you. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. What would your ranking of the Frighteners be?
I think I will give it. It's hard because it is really good. Like it's very rewatchable. There are a lot of good things about it. I think I would give it a 3.75 skulls.
Perfect. And what I love about this movie is the numerous twists and turns that come along with it. Um, like you hear about how he got in a fight with his wife because he built a basketball court instead of a garden. And then you go back to the house later on and there's a garden there and you got the douchebag guy that's like wasted a perfectly good basketball hoop.
Yeah.
So there's a lot about this movie that I could see being a hit. And there's a lot, there are little things about the movie that I wasn't too fond of, but in the annals of history, would you say this is one of your favorite scary movies, or would you say this was kind of one that's just like it's one of the movies you enjoy, but you wouldn't really put it in a top 10?
I don't think I would put it in my top 10. I just feel like there are so many other good horror movies that are better than this one. But not to say that it's a bad movie or anything. Like I would definitely rewatch this. So yeah, it's good, but I wouldn't say it's like top 10 good.
Which totally respectable. So I do want to thank you again, Victoria, for coming on and for hanging out with me for a little bit. This seriously means a lot to me. And I would love for all of you, please make sure you're clicking these links down here in the description. Make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channels. Make sure you're following on Instagram, but also make sure you're checking out the shop because everybody, especially during the pandemic, we've realized how we rely on small business, small filmmakers. That's the thing that helped to make our world go round. So make sure you're helping to support everybody and what they're doing. We are here. We're at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll. So, Victoria, I do want to say one more time, thank you so much for coming on. Please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.